Or poliomyelitis, as you may have heard it called, is a disabling and life-threatening disease caused by the polio virus. The virus spreads from person to person and can infect a person's spinal cord, causing paralysis. Most people who get infected with the polio virus will not have any visual symptoms. About 1 in 4 people with the polio virus infection will have flu-like symptoms that include sore throat, fever, tiredness, nausea, headache, stomach pain. These symptoms might last 2 to 5 days and then they go away on their own. A smaller portion of people with polio virus infection will develop other, more serious symptoms that affect the brain and the spinal cord, possibly meningitis or paralysis. Paralysis is the most severe symptom associated with poliovirus because it can lead to permanent disability and death. Between 2 and 10 out of 100 people who have paralysis from poliovirus infection actually die because the virus affects the muscles that help them breathe. So it's up to 10% depending on their situation. Even children who seem to fully recover from polio can develop muscle pain, weakness, and paralysis as adults, 15 to 40 years later. And this is called post-polio syndrome. And we may know someone who still has post-polio syndrome. So polio eradication is Rotary's #1 global project. 3 billion children have been vaccinated. The polio eradication campaign has helped prevent other vaccine-preventable diseases like measles, Ebola, and COVID. Rotary isn't doing this alone, of course. The Global Polio Eradication Initiative partners are World Health Organization, WHO, Rotary International, of course, Centers for Disease Control, CDC, UNICEF, Gates Foundation, and most recently, Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance. So, is polio maybe in your rearview mirror? Like it to be. Some people look at polio as a done deal. Why is that? Well, some have never experienced or even heard of polio. We have so few cases. Let's call it a day. Well, back in 1979, actually 1977, just a little side note, was the last known case of the wild polio virus in Canada in 1979 for the USA. However, back in 1979 as well, the Rotarians and actually a single person in the Philippines decided, hey, why don't we try to make our country polio free? And they got together with some other local Rotarians and government, and they made that happen. And then in 1985, it became a project for all of Rotary International, along with WHO, of course, at that point. Right then, there were 350,000 cases every year, still in 123 different countries. So about 1,000 a day, new cases. Oof. If you can recall, maybe you do recall, remember somebody that had polio when you were a child? In Canada right now, 31,000 people still live with the complications of having polio as a child. Let's bring you up to date from that 350,000 cases per day. In 2020, as of this month, we have 29 cases in the entire world. 2 in Afghanistan, 20 in Pakistan, and 7 in Mozambique. In 2021, however, there were only 6 cases. So what's happening? There are also cases of vaccine-derived polio. And mostly those are in Africa, parts of Africa and Yemen, and one in New York, which you've heard of. The virus is still just a plane ride away, as we've most recently seen in Malawi, Mozambique, and that New York City episode. Polio can find its way again to any city in any country. We have to keep up our vigilance, research, our vaccinations, our environmental sampling, and required funding, of course, too. So we've all seen recently that ugly, ugly coronavirus picture You've seen it somewhere. You see that picture of that virus. Well, the polio virus looks like that, just different colors. So they have a lot of similarities. Their ugly, spiky virus, corona, helps us today to better understand the polio virus history. And here's how. One becomes a patient and needs to be hospitalized. In the 50s, people were put on an iron lung, helping them to breathe. Today, that machine is called a ventilator. I'd love to show you the picture I have here of an iron lung. Maybe you've seen one. Doesn't look very comfortable. So governments in the 50s took measures to prevent contaminations by closing schools, theaters, no birthday parties, and no social and definitely social distancing like we're doing today. So we have a new polio eradication strategy. Goal 1 is to permanently eradicate the wild polio virus. Goal 2 is to stop transmission of any vaccine-derived polio virus. So in June of 2021, the Global Polio Eradication Initiative launched a new strategic plan covering the years 2002 to 2006. The new plan builds on our progress to date and addresses the remaining hurdles to polio eradication. The title of the strategy is Delivering on a Promise, a polio-free world. The strategy has 2 goals: interrupt transmission of all polio virus in Afghanistan and Pakistan, and stop transmission of circulating vaccine-derived polio virus type 2 and prevent outbreaks in polio-free regions. We are confident that the strategy will deliver our promise to the children everywhere and that they will soon live in a polio-free world. So what's the timeline for this? So beginning this year, there is a broader use of a new novel oral polio vaccine to more effectively stop outbreaks of circulating vaccine-derived polio virus. Interruption of wild polio virus type 1, the only type left circulating, and reporting the last isolate of circulating vaccine-derived polio virus is planned for the end of 2023. The certification of the eradication of type 1 polio virus and the validation of the absence of circulating vaccine-derived polio virus is planned for the end of 2026. So we can feel good that the number of wild and circulating vaccine-derived polio cases continues to decline, but now's not the time to be complacent. Rather, we need to capitalize on the progress to maintain a high level of immunity among children so that we can achieve total eradication. This requires hundreds of thousands of frontline workers immunizing hundreds of millions of children and intensifying disease surveillance activities to be sure that we know where the virus may be circulating. A robust surveillance system is essential to proving that we have interrupted the transmission of the polio virus. So Rotary has committed to $150 million in the next 3 years. That gets matched twice by the Gates Foundation. And in addition to that, many, many countries have committed. So we're looking at a huge amount of money still to finish the job, but we're going to get there. So with Rotary's funding, we raise awareness and grants. Some of the grants are for polio vaccines, and some of the grants go to getting the vaccines to the children, so that the healthcare workers themselves. Also, some of the funding will go to detecting the polio virus. And I was next going to show you a picture of myself in Egypt immunizing a child. And they don't need foreigners like us to come into their country and help them vaccinate. The Rotarians on the ground work quite effectively with Rotaractors, volunteers, and the paid healthcare workers to get the job done. But I am passionate about eradicating polio because I have kids that will never be affected by the disease, and grandkids. They'll never hear about it. because of the vaccine, and because I personally had the opportunity to prevent hundreds of kids from getting polio, from not just being there and helping immunize, but helping with a little bit of fundraising as well. So let me ask you now, are you looking at polio through the windshield to the future? Or are you looking at the worldwide eradication of polio through the rear view mirror? We still need help. Anybody that can help is greatly appreciated. World Polio Day is tomorrow, October 24th. Each year we celebrate and bring awareness, and that is something that you can do to help. Please keep continuing to talk about polio, talk about vaccines. Let's get this job done, and we need your help. And thank you very much. Keep an eye out on the prize. Keep an eye on the prize. It's going to be a polio-free world in our lifetime. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them.